everybody. Welcome to Cook's Drinks and
watercolor
memories
of the way we were.
Welcome to Cook's Drinks and Iconoclasts. I'm your host, and I'm riddled with disease. My name is Mike Lucht, and I am joined, as always, by my co-host,
Spencer Lowry. How you doing, everybody?
And Christopher Wells.
And before we get started,
Yeah. I would like to apologize to the audience and my co-host. Last time I had a little too much of the Mr. Intelligent sauce, and I knew everything. So I just want to say sorry.
it wasn't
in the
so
sauce.
much
It happens
the
to the best
know
of us.
everything, but the why are we even talking about it? That was what got me.
Yeah.
In fact, and I, for my own sake of disclosure, I did lose my temper with Chris, and I attacked him personally, and I apologize for that. That was not cool. But I was super pissed, and I almost didn't have a What's Weird this week because I started creating a bingo-like game of annoying things Chris does in the show.
Oh,
And I was like,
wow,
this
you're
is
putting a lot of effort into this.
not really. I was like, this is just needlessly mean and fucking
right.
gratuitous, so.
High five. Good job, everybody.
Okay. Oh, I hit my microphone.
So yeah, today we're discussing an infamous unsolved murder, and I want to put extra emphasis on unsolved because there
Capital
seems to,
U unsolved. Yes.
yeah, there seems to be a large contingent of people who really want this to be one thing. But anywho, we're talking about the death of Elizabeth Short, aka better known as the Black Dahlia. We're gonna get into it.
Take 'em away, toys.
Yeah. Take them away.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's a lot to cover. It's gonna be crazy, but as always, before we get into that, we're gonna do a little What's Weird this week.
Okay, this one's right up my alley.
All up in your alley.
It ain't mine, it must be urine. AKA, it's better to be pissed on than to be pissed off. This is an article from thesmokinggun.com. August 28th, not just about a few days ago. 59-year-old doctor who has been shamed out of his medical license for being a pill farmer.
Dr.
Bill
Giovanni.
Farmer.
Yeah,
Baula.
Dr. Giovanni Baula.
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 Oxycontin as high as the elephant's ear.
Yeah. So this guy
I
was
had a giraffe pussy.
discredited and shamed for running a pill mill out of his office. He sold his physical medical office to another doctor, Dylan Dinesh, age 32. And I guess, he had some kind of personal beef, but it was probably more like jealousy and in outward focused anger.
Also a doctor.
Yeah.
Dylan Dinesh.
Yes.
Doctor.
He sold it to another doctor who had an office. They don't say exactly what his beef was, but I think it was probably he was looking down the barrel of his wasted life and his shame, and he just wanted to take it out on the person who's working in his office now. That's my 2-minute theory, but anyways, he got arrested for soaking the front doors with gallons of fluid, which had the odor of urine. And you know what? If it smells like urine and it tastes like urine,
Quacks
you
like
know what,
urine.
brother? It's urine.
How do you get gallons of piss? Like, you gotta, save up all day and weeks
Or
for
you
that.
harvested some porta potties or something,
You know what? I wonder, he was a doctor. I bet he might have had a lot of urine samples just on hand.
Yeah, he was just opening piss bags into a
Opening
55-gallon barrel.
Oh, yeah, just walks into the hospital with his credentials and then just starts getting those.
Hi, I'm Dr. Pissbag. I need to take this.
Yeah. Just here for the piss
You
bags.
need to commandeer all your piss you've got lying around.
Yeah, it's for a medical thing. Yeah, so apparently the urine smelling liquid soaked the doors and made them swell up because they're wood doors.
Oh, you can't fix that.
So full of piss that the doors cannot be repaired, and plus the smell. I mean, you think about, what do you think gallons of piss smells like? And who knows?
Way worse.
I
than
imagine
a
it would
fresh
be human.
piss.
Yeah. So anyways, he got arrested and charged with a felony count of criminal mischief. You know, because I guess there's not
Yeah.
oh, call in a code 217, you know, pissed on the doors.
Well, if he'd have pissed on a person, I think it's a felony.
Would
Yeah,
it be?
It's assault with bodily fluids.
Only
Yeah.
if they complain.
I mean, yeah, the consenting
Yeah.
adults
Yeah, this is a non-consensual
can
pissing.
pee on each
Yeah.
other.
Anyways, he was arrested, charged with the felony, bada boom, bada bing. His license, he still had a
Oh,
home-
it is his felony criminal mischief.
Yeah.
Okay, criminal mischief is usually a misdemeanor, but I guess
Imagine the
a felony
prosecutors in
level.
the office, you know, in the court is like, what the fuck do we
I think
charge
they
this
go
guy
by
with?
the amount of damage.
Yeah.
I think
oh,
if
okay.
you fuck up
Makes
a
sense.
whole building with your pee-pee.
Yeah, and he, like it says in the bottom here, he was discredited in 2003. He was reprimanded by the Board of Medicine. Lots of money in community service after he improperly prescribed medication online, like on Skype, you know, like a phone call. It's like, oh, hey, are your teeth itchy? Take this Oxycontin.
All right, now this made me think back to when I went and peed in somebody's mail slot in old Beavers neighborhood back in the day.
In the door?
In the door, I would
Nice.
go up to the door slots because they had a mail slot. We were all drunken around, and he said he didn't like
Drunken
it.
around.
I think he. I don't remember if he was
Wait.
like stop or if he was like yeah, it's fine. I don't like that.
You
neighbor."
pissed through the mail slot?
Through the mail slot
Into the house?
into the house.
Oh, okay.
Wow.
Yeah.
Because they used to
Nice.
have those real estate things, like
I
take a
peed in one of
flyer.
those, too.
Yeah, a lot of us peed in those. Yeah.
Yeah, those things we peed in those.
For
But-
real?
Yeah.
Cool.
Summer in Texas. I bet that was real nice.
Oh, God. Yeah, after it's all... Yeah.
That
Anyways.
blazer wearing fucking
Thinking in
goddamn
the morning.
realtor probably was not happy about it.
Never gonna get my
let me
gold
get a little
jacket.
flyer for you folks if you're interested in the house. Oh.
Just hands it to somebody with the piss soaked into them. Yeah.
Call me.
Did it rain recently?
Yeah. Anyways, that's my what's weird. How about you, Chris?
All right. So for this week, I have a little bit of a Chris's conspiracy cesspool.
Oh,
Current affairs.
CCS. Nice. No, it's CCC.
It's still a triple C. Anyway, frenzy over a Venezuelan gang in Aurora reaches crescendo, fueled by conflicting information and politics. That is just one of the many titles. That was the Denver Post. This has been a pretty interesting week. We got a lot of... it's an election year in America, which is garbage. So a lot of back and forthing and politicized news events.
Chicanery.
So earlier this week, a video was circulating online of what was said to be, and which looked, I don't know, they look like light-skinned Latin men, which I would guess is Venezuelan. It was said that in Aurora, Colorado, a group, this was on a Ring camera, a group of Venezuelan Tren de Aragua gang members
Perfect.
were taking over these apartment complexes. And apparently it was like 2 different apartment complexes. So the reports go. This is seen it a lot on social media, and it was on the news. The right-wing news, when it first came out, latched onto it big time, of course.
Yeah.
Immigration being a big deal this year.
Yeah.
That is very, what do you call that?
Hot button issue.
Hot button issue.
Smoke screen.
Yeah, and yeah, a good one. But that is a thing. But I mean, the video was there. It was circulated, and it was, 5 to 7 dudes. I saw the video. It was on a lot of places, going door to door in an apartment complex, caught on multiple Ring cameras. All of them fully armed with rifles and pistols, in a group, going door to door, knocking, making people get the fuck out, and looking. And they were apparently tracking down somebody, and somebody did get shot later that day.
Didn't they also burn down one of the buildings or a fire started?
You're mixing up. I'm getting there.
Okay.
I'm getting there.
Sorry.
All right, so that was the first thing. Right-wing media, Fox News, and all the super right-wing stuff that I find in the nether regions. That stuff definitely was playing it up. The CNN, ghost, crickets, nothing. There was nothing until they absolutely had to address it, and that was after I believe it was, I don't know if it was a mayor or a governor. It was some kind of politician
The mayor.
from there obviously a left-leaning. They said, no, this didn't happen. It's nothing. Or they were like, it's blown out of proportion. And it's like, well, the video's there. There is an armed group of guys going door to door in this apartment complex for some reason or another. So you can't really deny that. So that's part of the conspiracy, is the right wing is playing it up a lot and the left wing is playing it down. But there's a fucking video, right? And that's the first one, okay?
Something did happen.
Something happened.
There was a doings that transpired.
It's just how big of a deal do you want to make about it?
How can we spin this?
Yeah, spin it your way or spin it the other way, or pretend it really didn't happen because you don't want to. You're really just trying to not agree with the right wing, even though maybe it did happen, and you're like, no, it's not that big a deal. There's not this whole group of Venezuelan gang members running around armed. Anyway, that was the first one. A few other things were popping up. As of yesterday, one popped up and they said it was in Dallas. There was a video of a guy getting beat down by a bunch of Latin males in a parking lot. And they said that was Dallas. That has not been confirmed yet. That was all over socials yesterday and today. And of course on Libs of TikTok. And even the funny thing is the Dallas Observer, notoriously left-wing magazine, actually circulated on their Instagram page today. They showed the Libs of TikTok article on their headline, which upsetted in the comment section a lot of their normal left-wing listeners, or viewers, readers, whatever. What? Anyway, that was one of the things. And in response to this, a lot of true American fucking patriot gang members were like, decided, and this was also on social media. I did see videos on there were TikTok and Instagram of gang members going in, showing up into Colorado, saying, "Yeah, we're here to fuck. We're gonna fucking kick those goddamn Venezuelan gang members out of here. Fuck that. This is my gang territory, motherfucker." What? And also, it was reported that the Hell's Angels were also going to be showing up into Colorado. I saw some videos.
Good idea.
But other people in the comment section were like, no, this was actually footage from Sturgis 3 weeks ago. So that's some bullshit. But we can't deny the original thing.
Yeah.
Then the further, and this is on the right end of the conspiracy, the far thing that is really going, this is where it gets deep, is okay. So
get your floaties on
it is said that all these immigrants coming in, these Venezuelans, because they are actually sanctuary. They're not your regular Mexican guy coming up just looking for work. They are supposedly escaping the troubles down there because it's fucked up in Venezuela. Venezuela, no. It's fucked up down there. The money's worth nothing. Fucking gangs are running over, and their dictator. They essentially had a coup. The election failed. And the guy said he's the winner. He's like, I'm the winner. And they're like, no. But what it has been said is that he emptied out the prisons of all these gang members because he wanted to be able to lock up political dissidents.
This reminds me a lot of Haiti.
It's a lot of Haiti.
Barbecue.
A lot of the opening scene from Scarface, where Castro emptied the prisons of all these criminals, shipped them on boats over to America, and they became fucking Al Pacino.
Yeah.
And cocaine cowboys and whatnot, which did happen. A lot of they were exiled from Cuba, and a lot of their criminals were let out of prisons and kicked out of the island and sent here.
It'd be so weird if Colorado turned into like a postmodern version of the Warriors.
Yeah.
With like them and the Hells Angels and all these other gangs.
Well, but it was also like Goodfellas too, but with a South American twist.
Well,
we're gonna write this.
Since then, a lot more of these articles have been popping up in multiple media sources, and I've found some that were actually dated back before this. After looking into it, this Venezuelan gang shit is actually pretty prevalent, and they're all going into certain areas and doing kind of a little takeover. They're like, fuck, we're criminals. What are we going to do? We're all here. We're together. Fuck, let's be criminals. Let's
strength in numbers.
Because what are you gonna, I mean, you just left the violence of Venezuela to the land of fucking milk and honey up here. And lots of drug consumers and lots of people with money to extort. And if you end up in an American prison, it's not near as bad as a Venezuelan prison, I'd imagine. So where it gets really deep is that these people are getting, and I've seen a few confirmed things. The numbers are blown out of proportion from what I've seen on some, but they are getting apartment vouchers and cash money vouchers and like thousands in food stamps every month, right? It is being said, the conspiracy is they're getting like $5,000 a month in cash and a few more in housing vouchers.
Benefits.
They're getting all the fucking benefits because they are refugees. They're not just immigrants. They are refugees.
Okay.
So they qualify for this status, which if you look into it, California actually is any immigrant. They're just giving them $30,000 to buy a house. If you qualify, you got to have some money too. But so what the conspiracy is they're getting this money and they're using it to buy houses. Or at least put a little money down. They're making some payments, and they're gonna
Probably
have
pulling funds together.
Yeah, they're pulling funds, getting houses.
Real estate
on
speculation.
top of they're just gangs taking over apartments. This is the real deep conspiracy.
Flip that casa.
Is that they're getting the money. They're gonna buy these houses, right? They're gonna buy these houses. They're only getting money for 6 months, maybe a year, depends. I forget. I've seen various accounts, but so they're supposedly getting this money. They're supposedly buying houses. They're eventually going to default on the loan. The bank gets the house. Who owns the bank? BlackRock.
What?
Okay.
What is causing our current housing crisis? Corporations buying up all the houses and turning them into rental properties. All your single family homes are being bought by, and this is a fact, though the numbers that I've seen some places say the numbers are much lower, but banks are buying houses, turning them into rental properties at exorbitant fucking rates.
Yeah.
Way more than the house is actually worth for renting, or what it normally would be if I owned a house and I'm like, let me just rent it out like normally. But no, because these big banking companies, they end up getting the house in foreclosure. Then they put it on the market at an exorbitant fucking rate. And if it sits there and they don't rent it, who cares? You know, that's still just part of their portfolio. They didn't lose anything.
Yeah.
They're making money hand over fist for nothing.
Wow.
But then eventually, all these the assholes, some assholes eventually gonna pay for it. Like we're in Texas, we ended up with a lot of California refugees here that bought up a bunch of houses because it's cheaper. It was cheaper here. Now the prices are getting closer to what it was there. But anyway, people were coming here paying stupid money for rent and housing, and it all is kind of getting rolled into this ball and put on our housing crisis that is a thing because I don't know, the fucking duplex next door to me that, 10 years ago, $800 a month. They want $1,800 a month for that motherfucker right now. And all they did was slap some fake hardwood floors on that bitch and paint the walls.
I was joking when I said real estate speculation, but it turns out that's
no,
the whole fucking thing.
The whole conspiracy, because that is actually one of the biggest problems in America right now that everyone is frustrated about. It's fucking cost of fucking living.
Yeah.
It's a real thing. This is a real conspiracy. Whether it's actually like that, is that all the Venezuelans tied in? I don't know, maybe not. But it does make you think. And it is something to be pissed off about.
That's the story they're trying to sell.
It's like, who are you pissed off at, though? Me, I'm pissed off at the goddamn corporations. Do I like regulation? No, but should all these corporations be buying up all the single family fucking houses? Nah, sell it back to another fucking single family. Don't put it in your portfolio. But that's what they're doing.
Or make it
they're making us all renters.
Yeah.
That's the whole thing.
That's the whole story with
you own nothing.
The big overarching conspiracy, is that you will never own anything.
Yeah.
You
will own nothing and you will be happy about it.
Yeah, fees to do everything, basically. Yes. Like, even the electronics in your house, etc., or whatever.
And keep feeding that big corporate fuck pot.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
But anyway, so
you can get this phone for $60 a month for 7 years.
Are the Venezuelan gangs real? Yeah, they are. Did they take over the apartments? Probably not, but they did some fucked up shit. And it's a thing. I mean, it's a thing. And is real estate fucked? And are corporation fucked? Yep, that's all real.
Yeah.
So, I don't know. Doesn't leave you in a happy place, does it?
The banks are definitely, I
like to make a joke at the end of this stuff, but I think joke's on us, folks. And that's, again, not what's weird, but what's unfortunately common in this film.
That's fucked.
Well, in keeping with unfortunate news, my what's weird this week, I may be a little late to this party, if you can call it that. I stumbled across a video on YouTube recently by the creator Nick Crowley, however you say it.
Crowley.
It's about
Mr.
Crowley.
It's about this individual who goes by the name Smart Schoolboy 9. And
I bet he's neither.
No. It's one of the most disturbing things I've seen in a long time. Let me see.
Oh, you sent that in the middle of the day. I didn't even get a chance to look at it.
Yeah, see, basically,
In the middle of the night.
this guy.
Oh.
Yeah.
Oh wait, maybe I didn't see that.
Fuck, it had his name or who he might be here.
What is it called?
Smart Schoolboy 9. So I watched the video by Nick Crowley, and basically the gist behind this whole story is that there's this intensely disturbing individual who has opened up Instagram accounts that claim to be operated by 3 different children and one by a mother, basically. There's a lot of disturbing digital AI artwork.
The one up before that was the goddamn BTK.
Oh yeah, that isn't.
No, that's not
BTK.
BTK.
Yeah.
That's the fat boy.
That isn't BTK?
No, BTK didn't do a clown shit. It's
it was one of those.
the guy that had the kids buried.
John Wayne Gacy?
That ain't
Yeah.
John.
That's
not
BTK.
John. That's BTK.
Is it?
Yeah.
Yeah, BTK dressed up.
So yeah, one of these accounts is called truth_sticks_11. The bio is shown to be running, the sites or the Instagram account is said to be run by a boy and his mother. However, yeah, once you start looking into all this, there's, oh god, this guy, I can't even stand to look at him. It's all about, like, there's people who've been saying, like, this is just some dude with a sort of, and I didn't even know this was a thing, but a school uniform fetish. But when you get into it and dig a little deeper, he's actually taking pictures of real children and trying to befriend actual children on the internet.
Not
Yeah,
good.
and I will say that he's got this whole, like, he looks like a fucking horror movie villain.
Yeah, he
like,
does.
it's disturbing. And he does this thing that's really sticks out to me, that has stuck with me and why it disturbed me so much. I don't know if he's wearing, like, a fake, like, facial prosthesis or something, but he's got, like, this face that sticks out kind of horse-like with big teeth, and he does these weird, it's just
God.
disgusting. But, yeah, this monstrosity is, basically combing through Instagram and putting up all these
Wearing
sites
false
about how yeah, that's what I think it is, false teeth. Yeah, he's got, like, the chiclet teeth. He's putting up all these disturbing AI artworks of school children, and one of the extra disturbing bits is that all the audio on this, there's pictures of him and short videos of him. They don't show him doing it, but you can tell that he's, let's say, occupying himself.
He's feeding the geese.
Yeah.
Feeding the geese.
And,
Masturbating.
Yeah. It's disturbing as fuck, and what adds to the disturbingness overall on this account is that it's the weird cosplay added to the fact that he is actively seeking out and taking pictures of real children and talking to real children, and just
he's not fun schoolboy like the guy from
No.
AC/DC.
Yeah, this isn't, my name is Simon and I like to do drawings. This is, which, I don't know, that's kind of disturbing. In
Yeah,
itself,
because
I
he was
guess.
in a tub.
But, yeah, I'll include the video by Crowley on this. It is, man, it's really just mostly visual cues, but the audio also, he does this weird, like, little kid voice, and it is fucking horrendous. This is like a real life horror movie if I've ever seen one in the last I don't know how long. Just god, I don't even know what else to say about it. It's extremely fucking weird, that's for sure. So like I said, I'll put the video in the show notes so you can check it out. Thanks to Nick Crowley for breaking this story, because this is just I don't know if he broke the story, but he made a documentary on it that covers pretty much everything you need to know about it.
The
Quite
internet
disturbing.
is
This
full of stuff.
This is really sick.
What?
And that's what's disturbing this week. So yeah, we got quite a bit to cover on, we're going to try and squeeze it all in one episode, I hope. We're not exactly going to be trying to reinvent the wheel here as far as the murder of Elizabeth Short goes, the Black Dahlia murder. There's a lot of bullshit information out there, I'll say that, and it's hard to qualify and quantify and like double check sources on this
because the sources don't got sources.
Yeah. And it's almost like it's this weird closed off self-referential. Get rid of that.
Yeah, come on.
It's like a weird like closed.
I'd rather see the Black Dahlia fucking
scary,
body
man.
shots than
It's
that
scary.
weird guy.
Yikes.
Yeah.
It's almost like a closed self-referential circle where like these people are quoting each other's bullshit
Yes.
in order to bolster arguments and their own pet theories. And there are a lot of pet theories and a lot of people. One guy in particular who I think is extremely full of shit, but we'll get to him in a minute. There's a lot of people who stand to make a lot of money off of this murder. And
sales.
Yeah, this person in particular
There's
we'll get to.
quite a
is
few
just-
with books. And then of course there's everybody wants to fucking be a goddamn sleuth, you know?
they wanna crack the
Crack.
case.
Me,
Which-
I would never even pretend like I know enough to fucking
Yeah.
solve a goddamn murder, okay? Like
Especially a 80-year-old.
80-ish year old fucking murder.
And
Yeah.
because it's still open, you can't get access to certain information unless you happen to be a former LAPD detective, allegedly. But yeah, you can't get access to the coroner's report. You can't get access to the autopsy report.
They should just open source that sort of stuff, you know? I mean,
Yeah, I mean, well, they have to keep certain things about cases secret, you know, especially if it's an open case. So, what we're gonna do is I'm gonna kind of lay out a little bit about the rumors and misconceptions around Elizabeth Betty Short. Betty, as she liked to be called. She was not a prostitute, first of all. She was barely an actress. I think she maybe entertained ideas of that,
Yeah,
but there's
nobody
no-
could prove that she ever went to an audition or anything
yeah,
like
she was
that.
just a young gal, bright-eyed, going to the big city to make a name for herself.
Yep.
You know?
She was basically couch surfing, as a lot of people were, because once again, back in 1947, housing crisis, with the return of all the World War II veterans, etc.
Yeah, they started popping up houses pretty quick then, though.
Yeah. Suburbs came not long after. She was flawed, I'll say that. Some of what I'm about to say may not sound very nice in talking about a dead woman, but we're all human. We have our faults.
And she been dead a long fucking time.
Yeah. She was referred to by a lot of people who knew her as a tease. Probably mostly men that said that.
She's
but
there for a good time, not a long time.
yeah, a lot of people have said that she kind of always depended on the kindness of strangers,
Yeah, it
etc.
seemed like if she was a tease, it
Blanche
was
Dubois.
just to get like, hey, can I get a ride somewhere?
Yeah.
Huh?
a drink, a meal, maybe.
Yeah.
So knowing how, the relationships between men and women and the social roles foisted upon them back then, a lot of what was said about her ended up being very not true, but also not very nice.
I mean, to an extent, she was just a young gal in survival mode.
Yeah, no, I've met a bunch of chicks like this.
She was predominantly a non-drinker. She drank when she was younger, and that's where one of her famous photos comes from. She was arrested for a public intox, I believe it was. But she quit drinking later in life. However, I mention this because it will come into play as far as the information available on how she died. She was said to be a bit of a liar and a sympathy hound, but very polite, very proper, always on the move. She had a previous boyfriend who she was supposed to marry, but he was a pilot who died, not in the war, but in a
Training accident.
accident. Okay, yeah. And her father killed himself, apparently, after mostly being absent her whole life. And she's been alleged to have used these as sort of like woe is me stories, which, I mean, you're entitled to a degree, I think. Fucking, it's not, it's worse than it is better, that's for fucking sure.
Oh, one thing I did like about her father, the story that I liked about her father, you know what he did for a living?
what was it, like, make golf courses or
Mini
something?
golf courses.
Uh-huh.
Miniature golf courses.
Why
But-
would you kill yourself if that was your job?
Well, because it tanked.
That's okay, yeah.
I guess I think it was before the war, it was coming out the Depression and all that stuff.
They had to make the putters.
People
out
just
of
aren't
wood.
mini golfing anymore.
Yeah,
I don't
people
know
just
what the problem is.
weren't fucking mini golfing. They had to go fight the fucking Krauts and the old, I can't say the other words. I don't think.
Japanese?
Yeah.
Eye ties?
We'll call them the Japanese.
So yeah, that's what can mostly be confirmed about Betty Short herself. Once again, looking into this, we've gone through so many sources and so many things contradict each other, and there's I would say a plethora.
A what? A plethora.
Of bullshit involved in most of the what have now become myths about this case. The best we can get to an autopsy or coroner's report is via Wikipedia. It has the most detailed accounting of what happened to her, basically.
Yeah, she had the hemicorporectomy, which is where they...
Hemicorporectomy.
Good one, Spencer.
There you go.
And that's the only way to sever a body in half without breaking both, because that part you can actually just kind of pull it apart. Like, when you're pulling a chicken, it's how if you can pull and twist, that's the only part. If you wanted to cut a body in half at the hemisphere, hemiocorporectomy, it's right there. Apparently that lower lumbar thing there.
I believe it was between her L2 and L3, if I remember correctly.
It's one of those things, and you just pop it right apart there.
Yeah, and this is actually the main reason that a lot of people have gone with the idea that this was done by someone who had to have been versed in anatomy and or was a surgeon. However, I've also heard people say that it's not that hard to figure out where to cut.
If you've probably dressed a deer or slaughtered a cow, which back in the 40s, a lot more people had experience.
It could have been a total accident.
Pulling animals apart.
Yeah, I've heard that too. They could have just got lucky, basically. So this not only severed her spine, but it did cause a little damage to her intestines. Now, not all, but some of her organs were removed.
One of the things that we saw said that they were not. That's the thing. Where are these people getting this information? Some say that there was organs missing. Some say, there was absolutely no organs missing. They were all just right in there.
See, I know that, take the phrase "I know" with a grain of salt. One of the sources, I'll say, posited, and this is also a lot of into the theory of why she was murdered. A lot of people think it was because she was pregnant. There's a lot of talk of abortion clinics, underground abortion clinics, etc., into this whole thing. But according to the coroner's inquest, from one source that I read, she was not, nor had ever been pregnant. However, there's another source, I believe it was the author of the book Severed, who put forth the theory that she had what was known as infantile genitalia syndrome.
So you mean she was super tight?
That's one way to look at it. She had very...
Like a paper cut framed in cotton candy.
Yeah, basically. Now, I don't know where they got this idea. I couldn't find it anywhere outside of the sources listed for the book Severed.
Yeah, like where did that's the thing. Where
I've
are
never
these
even
people
heard
getting
of
this
that
shit.
Like, I didn't know it was a thing. I mean, micro penis. I guess there's got to be a
micro twat.
Yeah. So that was another bit. There was another rumor that has mostly been dispelled that she was forced to eat feces. However, I've seen this countered with the fact that the way that she was cut, this basically ended up sort of contaminating certain areas of her body with feces that weren't normally supposed to have them there.
Yeah, there wasn't any in her mouth or throat.
Yeah, and also that her teeth were, like, fucked up, like, degraded, but that's mostly just from being poor, I think, and most people seem to think that as well.
Yeah, poor in the 40s.
Well, yeah,
bad diet, etc.
And the whole feces thing goes into a couple, or just the stuff it goes into a couple of the different theories that we will get to
That's
shortly.
why it's, gotta mention that. Her face was cut with a Glasgow smile, or a Chelsea grin, if you will. It was almost pretty much an entire bruise all over her face. They say that
if y'all look up the photos, they're pretty brutal.
Some of the worst shit I've ever seen, to be quite honest.
Also, her left breast was partially removed.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's the thing. Like they say, it's all like surgical, but if you look at it, it's like
It doesn't.
shit
doesn't
looks
look
pretty fucking
surgical.
jagged. Like
I thought he was done with a piece of broken glass.
Yeah.
I've also heard people say that before all this, like between the last time she was seen in person, it was with a fellow by the name of Red Manley, which is the most 1940s name I've heard in a
hell
long
yeah,
time.
that sounds like a dude
Bit
that
of
should be
steak.
solving the case.
Yeah, we'll come back to him later. But between the time that she was saw last and when her body was discovered at, what was it, 37th and Norton?
It was supposedly that one that we listened to said it was halfway between
Okay.
it was between those, like the two streets on whatever the other street
39th
is.
Street in Norton.
39th.
Yeah,
that's what-
39th, but it was like halfway in between.
And she was found by a woman walking her daughter, like in a stroller of all things.
And supposedly a lot of people go there and take pictures and they're in the wrong fucking spot.
Also, and while I'm thinking about it, well, we'll go through how she was found first.
Delete.
From what I've seen, most sources tend to agree that what actually killed her was loss of blood, shock, and blows
Bashed
to the
in the
head.
fucking head.
Yeah.
Because the bifurcation, there's very little bruising around those cuts, which
Yeah.
means it was done after she was dead.
Her body was drained of blood. Also,
Exsanguinated?
exsanguinated.
Exsanguinated.
Yeah.
And the
Very
reason I brought up Red Manley being the last person seen with her at the, I want to say, Biltmore Hotel, I've heard one source say that there was 10 days between that and her body being found. Yeah, I'm getting to that. But I've heard other sources say 6 days. So whoever did this had very ample time to do it, which plays into how much was done to her, and we'll elucidate on this a little bit more too. The reason that people think that she may have been sexually assaulted, for lack of a
Anal
better term,
canal was
Yeah.
dilated
Yeah.
1 3/4 inches.
Mhm.
That seems
That's
excessive.
more than just what happens when you die.
Yeah,
I
I
like,
guess it relaxes, so it probably opens
yeah,
up a
but
little
not
bit.
an inch and three. I mean,
Inch and 3/4.
I wouldn't think.
Her like after in conjunction with being exsanguinated, her body was also washed allegedly before being dropped off at the site, the dump site. I hate calling it that, but
it does
what it
look like when you look at her body, you're like, there's not very much blood there. Like
yeah.
Yeah, the skin looks nice,
it-
relatively
rinsed.
clean.
It looks
Yeah.
rinsed because
Yeah.
there would be blood, even if she was like
Dried, crusted.
professionally drained beforehand. When you're cutting her open, you're still gonna make a fucking mess.
Yeah.
You know.
The coroner's report, well, like I said, I don't want to have to keep saying according to one source, according to another. So just keep that in mind for most of what we're talking about.
Yeah.
Keep it in the back of your head.
We have no real sources.
Yeah.
No one does.
A lot of stuff is, I mean, if it's super confirmed to be
Hopefully, yeah.
true, then I'll probably try to
Apparently,
mention it.
The real information about the Black Dahlia is in that warehouse in the Indiana Jones movie.
Yeah.
It's deep in there, and
Right
nobody's
next to
ever
the
going to
Ark of
see
the
that shit
Covenant,
again.
Yeah. They said that there was also found to be, for lack of a better term, lacerations on, or no, not lacerations. There were marks on her wrists and ankles and neck. Which,
Struggle.
yeah. That's also been
Ligature?
put forward. Yes, ligature. That she was like tied down in some way.
Hmm.
The body being washed plays into whether or not she was sexually assaulted, and that the anal dilation, if you will. I see. They said they found no sperm. There was no trace of any sperm, but see, this could
But how
also.
do they test in 1947 for sperm?
I think they
I
could
mean,
test-
other than just visually.
I think they could test. Well, yeah.
It's like the same for blood, basically. Like there's I think it's a.
like a litmus kind of thing.
Oh
kind
yeah,
of,
there's
yeah.
jizz here. I'm sorry. I'm trying to talk in the Mid-Atlantic accent from the 1940s.
Go get Officer Jizz Taster.
There's no sperm.
Nope, she's clean.
No sperm, bluff.
So yeah, the idea by some people that they've posited is that she was indeed sexually assaulted, but because she was washed, this took away any presence of sperm.
This was, 40 years before anything
Yeah.
remotely resembling DNA testing.
Yeah, I
or
mean,
rape
you know,
kits.
very, very limited technology and depth of forensic science
Oh,
as
there,
far
yeah.
as whatever the coroner and autopsy can prove from just her body. Now, what we can prove from her body, and this is based more on psychological profiling, is that the person who did this fucking had plenty of time. This was most likely personal, because you don't do that kind of fucking thing to a person without, or at least they had some very intense, what's the word I'm looking for?
Premeditation? Or
Well, we could say.
Premeditation, yes, to a degree, but they fucking hated her,
Well,
basically.
this has also
Yeah.
been compared to Jack the Ripper,
Yeah.
which was also very, very similar type murder, and that was also, and it's not necessarily a personal hate; it's possibly just a hate of women.
Yeah, that's
Probably
what I mean.
just
Yeah.
a hate of women. Which,
yeah, and we didn't.
if you
mention
get on the
that
internet these days, you know there's still a lot of guys.
there was a
Oh, boy.
vertical incision about 3 inches long from the navel to above the pubic area that is
Yes.
coincides with hysterectomy type
Scars.
scar. Yeah.
Okay. I also saw another source that said that there was a chunk of flesh removed from her upper inner thigh and placed in her mouth.
All I could see was the
Which
tit was gone,
was supposedly, yeah, that happened, definitely.
and that didn't look like a clean cut either.
No, but maybe that was because of bloating or something. Like it looked like bubbling out. Like
I don't think you have bloating when you.
And
that-
that's
well,
what.
I mean,
what's
since
with all these
from the
guys
time
cutting
she-
tits off, man? That
That's what.
yeah, Geen did.
We'll kind of
it,
get to that a
who
little bit
else-
later too.
Who else was a tit cut?
Haddon Clark. He cut a tit off.
And the Chicago Rippers as well.
Yeah.
Fucking sick fucks. Let's see. Oh yeah. So psychologically speaking,
That's
from a
woman hate. Yeah,
a profiler standpoint, yes, very much. This person had a very ritualistic, like this was a whole fucking event for them, basically.
Yeah. I mean,
Yes.
well,
And
of course.
tic-tac-toe
Yeah,
it's
wound
not-
from the-
Not just from a labor intensive standpoint,
Yeah.
but that like this was a whole, I don't know, just a
You can
an
infer
act
that
out.
it was enjoyed, and it
Oh,
was
yeah.
like, yeah.
I mean, they lit some candles. They probably put on their favorite.
That's what I was gonna do, but then I remembered it was the 40s.
Yeah.
So yes, this has just fucking all kinds of deep, dark psychological ramifications to it. The woman hating, the ritualistic nature, the time and effort and energy put into this, that they were able to do it somewhere where they had their time and could put in the effort is also inferred. And then the fact that she was placed where she was placed, the idea is that they wanted this to be seen. Like that's
right by a sidewalk.
yeah,
I
it's
mean,
just the way
She was very staged. She didn't.
Yes.
They didn't just pull up and like, oh, let me just
She
throw
was
her out of the
posed.
trunk real quick.
she was
Yeah.
posed. Yeah.
Yeah, it was a pose. It was a very.
she could have been thrown out.
You could. It very could have
But
been.
the
but
legs spread out, open. you
That's
know,
very- yes,
that's,
that's-
something
yeah,
would have been.
That's
crumbled.
humiliation on top
She
of
wasn't
everything
crumbled.
else.
Mhm.
There would have been something crumbled if you just kind of tossed a body out. And
Yeah.
also, I mean.
I
don't
mean,
know.
yeah, her back was against the ground.
Yeah,
I mean,
when I say
What
thrown,
does half a woman weigh?
I'm thinking more like the
60
way
pounds?
her arms
well,
landed.
with the guts or without? With the blood or without?
I would say
This is in the 40s.
I would
People
say
were
60 pounds.
people
is
were
probably
not
right.
overweight. She was probably about 120 pounds.
Yeah, but they were
Hardy?
fed. Yeah.
They were hardy. Yeah, but they were still
Well,
coming out the
I'd
war.
say each half was probably
Quarter-fed
60,
weight
70
girls.
pounds.
Yeah.
60 to 70 pounds max.
The only reason I say she could have been thrown,
But
like,
cumbersome because the long
the-
legs makes it hard to carry.
If you ever lifted a dead body, it's fucking not easy.
yeah.
I mean, oh,
Who needs to go to the gym? No, yes, the way her legs were found, definitely staged. I have my reservations about the way that her arms are the way they are.
That could have been rigor mortis for being
Yeah.
held up by her wrist while they're cutting her in half.
or
Yeah.
raising the roof.
So, oh, Wellesley.
Sorry.
Oh, there's gonna be some of that.
I mean, what am I?
Yeah, no, you're not
It's
wrong.
been like 80
too soon.
fucking. Yeah.
So yeah, this was like we said, it was all those things: psychological, ritualistic, an intense hatred of women. What am I forgetting? They had their privacy and free time to do all these things, and they definitely wanted it to be
Not a
found.
renter in an apartment.
No. the additional bit of information that will go to prove even further, and now this is also take it with a whole fucking ocean of salt, but the fact that the LA Examiner, which is a newspaper that will come up several times through the course of this episode, was mailed 2 days later not only her birth certificate, but also her social security card, as well as an address book with several pages ripped out. Within the ensuing time after the newspaper reports, which also basically they ended up like publishing photos just as like they showed as much as they could, basically, within the bounds of the law and good taste in the newspaper. This is one of like first most sensationalized crimes of this nature.
Yeah, they were tabloid essentially.
Yeah,
but they still had to. It was tabloid / news. It was like New York Post meets the fucking, I don't know, what's that one that's on the on that checkout aisle?
National Enquirer.
National
Yeah.
Enquirer. It's like National Enquirer meets New York Post meets the gore that you used to be able to put in the newspaper that they don't put in the newspaper
Faces
anymore.
of Death.
Yeah.
Yeah, this is yellow journalism,
Very
like
yellow.
at its height. The fact that the Los Angeles Examiner was the one chosen to send these to is intriguing. The several pages missing from the address book, you never hear anything else about that. I've never heard anything mentioned elsewhere about that. The pages missing from the address book.
Just adding to the narrative.
Yeah,
Maybe, perhaps.
but the address book wasn't hers. It belonged to an acquaintance of hers who we'll get into in a bit. That basically, I think, covers the most important bullet points on how she was found. Am I forgetting anything that y'all can think of?
I don't think so. I'm kind of skipping around through our little source stuff on. We'll get to a lot of it will be covered because we might have to bounce around, backtrack a little bit once we go through the theories.
So if the fact that her birth certificate, her social security card, and this address book were sent to the newspaper, if this was done by the perpetrator, it goes even further in basically proving that they wanted this to become a fucking big news story. Also, the LA Examiner, basically the best way I can put it is there's no good guys in this story. That's for fucking sure.
Mhm.
I haven't found one really, but Elizabeth's mom, Phoebe, was informed of her daughter's gruesome, brutal murder by a reporter from the LA Examiner who called her mom and basically in a bid to get information was like, "Hello, is this the Short residence?" "Yes." "Are you the mother of Elizabeth Short?" "Yes." "Oh, your daughter, she won a beauty contest, and I just need to get some information about her." "Oh, that's my Elizabeth. She's so beautiful." And then, like, 10 minutes later, after this dude milks it for information, like, by the way, your daughter's been gruesomely murdered. Goodbye."
Yeah,
Fucking hangs up.
That was a pretty good Mid-Atlantic accent.
Thank you. I was trying to nail home the more, like, Dateline, fucking 1920s
Mid-Atlantic,
news
that's
guy.
right.
That's what it. Everybody had. Even all the in the West Coast, they had the Mid-Atlantic accent in the 40s, or at least
Yeah,
according
it was like
according to every movie we've ever watched.
Yeah. Spitting newspaper says.
Yeah.
So yes, the manner in which information was gathered about her and the way that her mother was informed of her murder, like, it just goes the extra mile in proving that the fucking LA Examiner in particular is also a villain in this fucking story. From that point,
Hey, they don't make the news; they just report it.
yeah. Well, it was owned by William Randolph Hearst, and he started the Spanish-American War just to sell papers. So this goes into one of my own theories.
The only thing I know about the Hearst family is what I saw on Deadwood. That's not true. I know a little bit more than that. But they made him out to be that was the elder Hearst.
Yeah. The
Of
one
course.
who
William
made
Randolph, yeah.
the one who made all the money,
Yeah.
or got the family fortune.
He had the gold money. Then his his sons bought the fucking papers.
Also, I think I might have this mixed up.
And then there was Patty Hearst.
Yeah. The LA Examiner was also run by a fellow named Norman Chandler, who is one of the many suspects, but there are so goddamn many suspects that I've tried to break this down to the most, let's say, the people who have had the most hay made on them, basically, as suspects. So we'll go through and just kind of talk about the ones that are
The usual suspects.
yeah, excluding the Saturn Death Cult / Pizzagate
Because there's-
pedophile Satan.
There's some stuff.
Yeah, / Chris Cornell super. I
People
don't know
have had
what-
time to work on this.
Yeah,
over the
there's
last
a.
80 years.
Oh my God, we'll include him. In notes.
I really do, as a guy in the I admire people's ability to make the connection because I
Yeah.
never would. I
Yeah,
sure
you-
as fuck would never
Hammer
make,
that goddamn puzzle piece.
make
They get
those
creative,
things.
yeah.
Hey, but they still manage to do it. Are they hammering the puzzle piece? Yeah, but hey, that puzzle piece does fit in a retarded ass way. Eventually.
Yeah. I mean, the Saturn Death Cult guy, I think, based the whole thing on feces. So.
Yep, pooping.
Yeah. So we mentioned Red Manley earlier. His
Not
name
Red
was
Man.
no, Method Man did it. No, Robert Red Manley was the last person that Elizabeth Short was seen with, and I believe it was the Biltmore Hotel. He was dropping her off. Dude was a bit of a rambler. I believe he was a veteran as well. He had some mental problems, but he was essentially ruled out as a suspect, and he was basically railroaded by the police to such a point that it mentally fucked him up for the rest of his life. I think he died in an insane asylum. There is Mark Hansen, who I mentioned earlier.
Chris
that
Hansen's dad.
there might
Why
be
don't you
some
take a seat?
relation.
Go ahead and take a seat.
Mark Hansen is a guy who owned some businesses, mostly theaters. He owned a lot of properties. And for a time, he was basically the landlord for Elizabeth Short and one of her friends. He was essentially trying to bang either one of them married, but they didn't. They didn't have any.
What else you gonna do?
Yeah,
you know?
They didn't have any interest in him. So eventually, he's like, she's a little tramp because
Yeah, prick tease.
yeah. That's where a lot of that tea stuff comes from. Mark Hansen is interesting because he owned. It's weird because his story is he's tied to these other people who may or may not have been involved, and there were many theories while the investigation first was going on that this was done by multiple assailants, basically.
Oh, they looked into the fact that maybe she was a lesbian.
Yeah, there's that too. There's
Must be.
Yeah.
lesbian doctor
Jeez.
or lesbian surgeon is one of the also suspects.
The views on, especially a lot of times when there was back in the day when there was violence against women like that, they're like,
Yeah.
oh, must be a homosexual that did it.
Probably lesbians.
Well, yeah, they said she was a lesbian because she was a tease and she wouldn't get down with anyone.
No straight man would hurt a woman like this.
Yeah, that too, and that a lesbian surgeon must have did it because lesbians are evil. First
Women
of all,
weren't allowed to be
Yeah,
doctors
there was no
back then.
lesbian
Yeah.
surgeons
Yeah,
in
actually-
1947.
all throughout America, female surgeons 6%, and they sure as fuck mostly were in L.A. But that ended up becoming like an angle in the whole Black Dahlia movie with ScarJo, I believe. Hilary Swank played the lesbian doctor, if that
Joe.
fucking tells you anything.
Nice.
Typecast. Let's see, who else? A fella by the name of Leslie Dillon. We'll come back to Mark Hansen a bit later as well. I think he comes popping back up. A fella by the name of Leslie Dillon, who was an amateur true crime sleuth. He kept calling the LAPD, trying to talk to people, get information, because he wanted to write about the story. This dude ended up getting handed off by the LAPD to the LAPD's in-house psychiatrist. And he was like, "Why are you so interested in this case?" He's like, "Well, because I'm a writer and
I don't know, Thurston Howell.
Yeah. If you see the picture of him, that's just the voice I think goes with it. And basically the police psychiatrist was like, "Man, it's interesting. I find it very interesting that you're so preoccupied with this case." And all based on this psychiatrist's hunch, basically. They brought this Leslie Dillon in, dude. They had him fly out to L.A. from where he originally was. I forget which state. And they fucking railroaded him in much the same way they did to Red Manley, except that Leslie Dillon ended up suing the LAPD and fucking won. So I guess he got vindicated for that. Leslie Dillon is another one of these names that comes up in like a sort of several man team was responsible for this. Him, Mark Hansen, and another fella who, and Leslie Dillon, he said that he thinks his friend, I want to say Mark Connor was the guy's name. And so this police psychiatrist was like, yes, Mark Connor. Does this, like, he didn't even think he existed.
Is he in the room with us now?
Yeah, basically, yeah. They thought it was like his alternate personality.
Touch the doll where Mark Connor touched you.
Let's see. Bugsy Siegel was
yeah, that's a big fucking that's big.
Orson Welles. As much as I want this to be true,
Uncle.
Maybe he was Marvin the Martian.
Maybe. Woody Guthrie was another celebrity.
Country musician?
Yep.
Yeah, like yeah. Labor activist too. So and time traveler Edward Fisk. Those are probably the most ridiculous theories.
Bill Donahue.
He did die recently.
Was
The
he alive
lipstick killer. Do what?
Yeah, Donahue would have been alive then.
Yeah, he would have been a young.
He was
lad.
wearing little sailor suits and
He was
stuff.
wearing that goddamn schoolboy suit.
So some of the murders or the suspects for the murder were related to other crimes as well, but have never been confirmed. No, some have been denied. The lipstick killer. Now,
Hey, apparently she was in Texas.
yes, she did stay in Texas for a while. They talked to a lot of people who knew her. Massachusetts, California, Florida, Texas, New Orleans. She's been everywhere, man.
She got around, man.
She's been everywhere, man.
The lipstick killer, for those who aren't familiar, the lipstick killer basically mutilated some women in, I believe it was Chicago.
Yeah.
And they booked a guy on it. I believe his name was Rayner,
Yeah.
something like that. And there's a lot of doubt as to whether he was the actual perpetrator, because they say that he claims at least that he was tortured, that he also had a alternate personality whose last name, it was like Fred Merman or some shit. It's something Merman.
Ethel Merman.
Yeah, that's
The
what I
whole
heard.
goddamn
Get out of my way!
alternate personality thing has pretty much been proven that really doesn't exist, right? Like multiple personality disorder.
Like the rarest of the rare.
It's so super rare,
and
most of the
then
people
it's
that do it are
debatable.
just faking it, essentially.
Yeah.
I mean, there's obviously something wrong with them if they're doing that.
Yes.
But are they really, really, really
Yeah, like their
believing?
brain is like partitioned off.
Yeah,
in a
it's
separate-
not like
Compartmentalized.
it's not. I don't think that really is a thing.
The whole thing with like multiple personality disorder or dissociative identity disorder, as it's identified now, very interesting, because especially with serial killers, that's where you get into this whole conspiracy gumbo of MK Ultra and shit like that.
Yeah.
But that will come up again later. The lipstick killer, like
I can't hear lipstick without thinking of fucking dog wieners. I'm sorry.
Red Rocket.
The dog wiener slayer. He wasn't in California at the time, the guy that they booked on the crime, so couldn't be him if it is indeed him. Then you have the Cleveland torso killer. I've heard this one debunked in that the reason that they think the torso killer may have been this person is that, technically speaking, the torso killer was never caught, although there are some people that say that, what's his name? Elliot Ness was the guy put in charge of finding him and, like, cracking the case.
Yeah, the fucking untouchable.
Yeah, and there's rumors and legends that he found out who it was, but he didn't do it in the most legal manner. Ended up fucking killing the dude.
Oh, okay.
So that's
I believe it, man.
I
Cops
can't-
back then were fucking rough and rowdy.
yeah, can't quite confirm that. But the main thing that they use to discount the torso killer is that the torso killer left most of his bodies in hidden places. He did not want them to be found. He did not want to be caught. However, there's pushback on that as well.
Yeah,
and
but
that
what if you're on vacation in LA and you
yeah,
just don't
I
know where to
fucking
dump
live here.
I don't live here. What does it fucking matter? I'm gonna dump a body on the corner of whatever the fuck.
And another string of crimes. There was the lone woman murders. This is a string of murders/sexual mutilations of various women. I think they ranged in age from about 29 to 50. Elizabeth Short kind of fits close to that. She was 22 when she was murdered, but I mean, that's a wide range of victim pool or whatever. These were, like I said, murders with elements of sexual mutilation, unsolved. Nobody knows who did these crimes, which is why if it's a person, and judging by the severity of what was done to Elizabeth Short, I would definitely say that this person has done some shit before. So, but nobody knows on that one.
That's not a first.
Yeah,
foray.
No, that's
no.
not. You're definitely not like, you know what? I'm gonna kill somebody and a woman. Hey,
Yeah.
you know what? Let me just start.
This motherfucker was
Mutilated.
varsity all the way.
Yeah,
Most
that's,
definitely.
you're.
First
But
string.
again, if the person was like a hunter or a World War II vet that had come back and had just seen bodies pulled apart enough, because again, the surgical does not look like surgical.
Yeah.
It's a fucking hack job.
Yeah, once again, they
But
could've
it
just
is
got
a
lucky.
very involved hack job because you can't just cut a body. I mean, I skinned a squirrel one time when I was a kid. Oh, it was a hunting trip. I'm not a
Yeah,
fucking weirdo.
Put it in context.
I ate that motherfucker afterward. Okay.
I heard the meat's really good since they eat mostly nuts and
They
protein.
use they put them in stews a lot. I've seen
it was pretty
southern
decent.
cooking things about
It
squirrel.
was,
Yeah.
I mean, I was like 12. I barely remember what the fuck it tasted like, but it was hard to pull them apart. Like, and then you got to their little fursuit actually surprisingly does pull off pretty easy.
I've heard that as well.
Yeah.
But
But
pair of
humans don't have a
pliers.
little fursuit. Our skin is attached in a different way. Then again,
What
I've seen
the
them
fuck?
cartel videos where they pull the face off pretty quick. Pretty quick.
let's see who else we got. Woody Guthrie, Orson Welles. So yeah, the lone woman murders; those are unsolved. I would say.
Don't forget
I-
Mr. Hodel.
Oh no, we're getting to him.
Oh.
I'm saving him for last because he's got the most involved.
Oh,
Hodel the
story.
Yodel.
So there's another guy named Walter Alonzo Bailey. This is the suspect put forth by a man named Larry Harnish, who works for the LA Daily Mirror, I believe, or that's the name of his website at least. He's an investigative journalist / former copy editor for one of the major LA newspapers. He has quite the axe to grind with one of the Hodels. We'll get into that. Okay, so he put forth the idea that this guy, Walter Alonzo Bailey, is the one responsible for the murder. And I don't necessarily buy this one because while Walter Alonzo Bailey does have several very convincing real-world connections to Elizabeth Short, technically they were roundabout related in a way. He's kind of putting forth this story that Alonzo Bailey, or Walter Bailey, excuse me, he was a wartime surgeon, and he also was suffering from essentially a form of a specialized form of dementia, and that he was getting older, he was losing his fucking mind. But once again, when you look at how the crime was committed, what was done, he's saying that this dude just went crazy, which I don't.
Well, you just
Like-
that's not a just go crazy like let's go
Yeah,
crazy
or-
Prince song.
Yeah, I've never killed anyone before, lost my mind, and did this. And also, he would have been 67 at the time, and also, according to...
67-year-old man ain't gonna pull that off.
Yeah, and also, according to...
Not alone.
I mean, I hope when
Yep,
I'm
there's
67, I'm able to completely flay a woman. But you got to work hard for that and keep in shape and eat right.
So
But
kids,
you're doing
you
a good
listening?
job on that so far.
The specialized form of dementia he had also caused him to shake, which that goes into a lot of people saying, like, this is surgical precision.
Not surgical.
Yeah.
Take
so-
just all the one picture of her face, of her Glasgow smile.
Yeah.
It's jagged as fuck. It's not a.
It's like the
smooth-
Moyle on that episode of Seinfeld where he's shaking.
Yeah, it's
you
not
know?
a smooth cut. Like if you, hell, even just a regular hunter that is.
Looks like he was done with a dull thing.
Or a butcher. Yeah. Adult. Yeah.
Bitch.
We doing it with a goddamn pocket knife.
Next suspect, George Knowlton. This was posited by a woman named Janice Knowlton, who was known
Janice.
to have suffered from mental health issues, but she and professional crime writer Michael Newton wrote a book together called Daddy Was the Black Dahlia Killer. She would be the first person to claim that her father was the Black Dahlia Killer. But,
Daddy issues.
yeah, there's a lot wrong with this theory as well, like saying that Elizabeth Short was a child procurer for a sex trafficking ring.
What?
No, I don't buy
I
it.
mean, that kind of goes in with the Hodel stuff too, you know.
Well, yeah, and actually,
It was definitely grooming and.
Hodel
Ugh.
was not the first person to also posit that his father was the Black Dahlia Killer. Someone did it in 1998. He was involved with this story, supposedly, put forth by
Okay.
this Knowlton woman.
Everyone is all the things that I saw referred to it as the daddy dearest scenario,
Ugh.
as opposed to just saying daddy issues,
Yeah.
because that sounds a little too, I don't know.
Yeah, Daddy Dearest, that's way better.
Yeah.
Uh,
yeah, exactly.
This is a late addition that I found while scrolling through the comments on one of the sources I was going through. There's a doctor named Patrick S. O'Reilly, and this comment, I'll just read the comment basically, because they lay the whole thing out. It was Dr. Patrick S. O'Reilly who killed her. He was a violent and perverse maniac who frequented the nightclub of Mark Hansen, the one who hosted Elizabeth Short at his home. Hansen was also the owner of the address book found on her, which wasn't found on her, it was mailed in, so there's that. Mark Hansen was obsessed with her, and she did not return those feelings, which has kind of been confirmed in others, confirmed, quote-unquote, in other sources, mentioned at least. Patrick S. O'Reilly and Mark Hansen were friends, and they participated in sexual games together. Mark Hansen knew where she lived before she died. It was a friend of his, Ann Toth, who paid Elizabeth's week-long hotel room charge. Mark Hansen was the last known person Elizabeth contacted by phone on January 9, 1947, 5 days before her tragic death. Patrick S. O'Reilly had assaulted his own secretary with a gun, leaving her almost dead, to rape her sometime before the murder. He had been married to the daughter of a captain of the Los Angeles Police Department, and his name was cited in a case concerning a failed abortion attempt that had caused a girl's death. He was always miraculously getting out of his legal problems, most likely with the help of his stepdaddy. His right pectoral had been removed by a surgery, which caused him a handicap, and he was of Scotland origin. This
Had to throw that in
information-
there.
Yeah, this information is important because of the Glasgow smile.
Yeah.
And also, I will also add that John Douglas's profile on the killer does posit that they had some kind of deformity, and that whoever it was,
Wienery?
What's up?
Wienery deformity?
He didn't.
Unable to swing one arm.
He
or-
didn't specify.
Like the Epstein dick thing?
He just said that they likely had a deformity, and that the reason Elizabeth Short was killed the way she was is because she made fun of it, and that's why she got the extra attention that she did.
And that's why she got her left breast mutilated.
That too.
Mhm.
Yeah, this guy, the person who posted this comment, by the way, their name is Silverado2492. Says, my opinion is Elizabeth refused his advances and may have laughed at his handicap, which enraged him. When you see what he did to his secretary, you don't have to be Sherlock Holmes to understand what happened in this case. She was raped, tortured, killed, then cut in half by Patrick S. O'Reilly, certainly only to facilitate the transport of the body, which has been posited elsewhere. That's the main reason she was
That
cut
would
in
make
half.
it a lot easier.
Yeah. I should point out that Mark Hansen had compromising information about certain officers of the Los Angeles Police Department at the time, information relating to a clandestine abortion trade and officers involved in sexual acts. I think this was all covered up by the captain's father-in-law. Various evidence disappeared oddly in this case, which has also popped up in several sources, including Elizabeth's organs, which were stored in a laboratory for analysis. When you look at the wounds and the smile on her face, everything points to Dr. Patrick S. O'Reilly. I include him because, like I said, I found this at sort of last minute with him and didn't get to confirm a lot of this stuff. But like we mentioned before, a lot of this information keeps popping up in different places to be
where is it
confirmed or
coming from?
denied.
Where is it
Yeah, this is
coming
kind of
from?
sounding similar to some of the other
Yeah.
tales. Yeah.
So if I don't know. I wanted to include him because there are pretty good reasons why it might have been him. I mean, that commenter paints a good picture. But speaking of paintings,
Hey.
the guy that we're going to talk about the most is because he is the most popular, and if you Google who is the Black Dahlia killer, this guy comes up first, almost as if the story wants to be like someone has a vested interest in this particular narrative coming up behind this. But
It is quite a web that is woven.
it's a story. It's
definitely sold some books and some podcasts. I listened to it before we were even doing the research. I listened to this shit. It was pretty good.
Something.
That is also unverified from what could find.
Of course, we're talking about George Hill Hodel Jr. As posited by his son.
I like how
Steve
Spencer
Hodel.
pronounces it. Hodel,
Hodel,
like yodel. Yeah.
Yeah, let's call him Hodel. Steve
It's
Hodel.
It's what he's a Hodel.
Hold on 1 second. So his son, Steve Hodel, former LAPD detective in homicide, I believe, which, oh man.
Only
He
for a
looks
brief
like
period.
he did it.
He does. He looks like a casting couch Hollywood guy from the 1940s.
Yeah.
Like, he'd been on that casting couch, except it's a doctor's couch, and he definitely molested a patient. He looks like a molester.
He was a scumbag. I mean, no doubt about that.
But also, if any of the stories are true, that dude got a lot of bush. Got a lot of bush back anyway. He didn't really have to do a lot of molesting.
Yeah, but I mean, back then, 2 bushes was a lot of bush. If you think about the
at the same
Well,
time,
you know what they say, 2 birds in the bush is worth a whole
TV wasn't that
horse
good.
full of water.
I think it was a lot easier. I feel like it was a lot easier to get laid back then.
Ooh.
Well, I mean,
I think back then, especially you think about all the weird.
It probably was, but they just don't talk about it back then.
Yeah, it wasn't like
there was a lot
it
of.
wasn't in the media, but it was probably real easy to be like, "Hey, honey, you want to go have a roll in the hay, huh?"
You're with me now.
It was, there's a lot of that. It's like it was viewed as manly and assertive to be assertive and dominating, which we had different names for that
Refusing to
now.
take no for an answer.
Let me show you the thing I heard about they do in France.
I'm a salesman. So yeah, Steve Hodel, Detective Steve Hodel, formerly of LAPD. He's the man who wrote the all-time best-selling book, The Black Dahlia Avenger, in which he posits that his father, George Hill Hodel Jr.,
My father.
was in fact the perpetrator of this crime. Now, the thing about George Hodel is, and I'm just gonna come out and say why I don't buy this particular narrative.
Give us the straight dope.
All right.
It's all to the whole story. It's a good story.
Yeah.
It's a compelling narrative.
Very much so.
But it's way too Hollywood. It's very Da Vinci Code. And he paints his father to be this fucking Machiavellian supervillain who in later years was also responsible for the Filipino jigsaw murder, as well as being the Zodiac and Lipstick
all right.
Killer.
I mean,
the Philippine one, that
Maybe.
kind of tracks.
He was there.
Because it was a similar style murder. The dude was in the fucking Philippines at the time.
I believe the body was found not too far from his personal office.
Now,
as well.
the Zodiac, though, that was a gun killing. You don't go from eviscerating a woman with a knife to going and just shooting fucking people in cars.
Nothing about the Zodiac makes sense to me.
No.
But if he was older, then he would probably rely on guns.
There was some stabbings also in the Zodiac.
Was there?
Yeah.
It's been
That's one of the reasons
it's been a while since I've looked into the Zodiac.
That's one of the reasons it doesn't make sense to me, because the
Zodiac was 60s, right?
Yeah.
So it was 15 years later?
Yeah. He would have been, 1907. He'd have been in his 60s.
Yeah. Another yeah. Well, so maybe he would have needed a knife or needed a gun to back up that cutting up, but still, I don't buy it.
I believe
you had me until Zodiac.
A literature professor by the name of Thomas Henry Horn, who postulates that the Zodiac basically is a hoax that these were unrelated murders, which I buy definitely.
Yeah.
But he brings in a whole thing of like police corruption and drug deals being involved, which there's some merit to it. But
that does happen.
Yeah.
Prolifically.
But the thing that gets me about the Zodiac is the mixed media with which he killed people, for lack of a better term. I don't know.
That was a killer learning their process.
Yeah. Changing it up, switching it up. I don't know. He basically postulates that the police, with working with the newspapers, came up with the idea of the quote unquote Zodiac killer to link a bunch of unsolved crimes together and basically
solve a bunch of cases.
Get the red ball or whatever you call it, and sell newspapers and make this fucking supervillain, much like
and get the
Steve
spotlight
Hodel
on them
did.
so they could ask, in an effort to get funding and everything.
That too. Yeah.
Kind of like with the Dixie Mafia, where there really was no Dixie Mafia.
Yeah.
But they called it that so they could, appeal to get money to stop
it was
the
really
Dixie
just
Mafia, when it was just an unaffiliated
a bunch
group
of rednecks that
Yeah.
happened to do some crimes.
A loosely affiliated group. The other thing about Steve Hodel's story that I don't get is that if his father,
His father.
saying also with the Zodiac thing, like, that's where he lost all credibility. I was like, okay,
Yeah.
maybe.
When he
No,
said
that's
that,
where he
like,
lost
it
that.
seemed like he kind of choked on his words when he was saying that too. He's like, yeah, and also he was the Zodiac.
Yeah, and the podcast, one of our sources, what was it called? Root of Evil? Root of All Evil?
with his whole family.
Yeah.
It was actually hosted by his
I mean, that's a hell of a
grandchildren, I believe. I kind of lost the trail.
Like,
yeah.
it was the grandchildren.
nieces or something.
Yeah.
It was Steve's it was
Uncle Steve.
Uncle.
That's what they
Yeah,
called
it was their uncle, great uncle, but and then George was their great grandfather.
I think great grandfather.
Yeah, great grandfather. Yeah.
The entire Hodel family has made quite a bit of fucking money off of the death of Betty Short.
Did they?
Yeah, they were they had that TV show called I Am the Night.
Oh, they did.
Yeah,
it
they
was
were
based off in the podcast.
Mhm.
That podcast was a big podcast because that thing just
Yeah.
popped up into my shit like a year ago, or maybe whenever it came out, and I listened to it. And yeah, that was a pretty big one.
So yeah, but there's the fact that the Hodel family has made tons of money off this murder. That Steve Hodel was like, "Oh shit, I just had a bestseller based off my crazy Da Vinci theory or Da Vinci Code
Let's do
fucking
7 more.
theory." So let's see what else I can crank out because I got an editor on my ass. And if his father was this like grandiose fucking like brilliant fucking serial killer, and he was an LAPD homicide detective who didn't pick up on this in time, then he's either the shittiest detective in the world or completely full of shit.
Well, that
I mean,
part.
who
no,
would have
'cause
suspected their own
he
father?
did,
though?
he didn't even
Well,
know his father. He didn't spend any time with his father.
They did
He was
when he was in older age.
As he was in older age, but at that point, if you don't know about the crime, you're not putting the two together.
Yeah,
Yeah, I can understand him not just.
I
under
that
the
part
radar.
I don't know. Like, yeah, him not seeing.
But
his
there's
father
so
was
much
that
other
before
stuff.
that. Yeah, there is the other stuff, but yeah, that part I could let slide because if you're just hanging out with your dad,
don't wanna believe
your
your dad is a
estranged
killer.
father. Why would you think about if you don't really know that much about his past? You're not going to put that together.
You wouldn't want to believe it. You know?
Yeah. Okay, I'll give him that.
Then if you're not trying to link him to any crime, period, why would you think about it?
My dad is the Zodiac killer.
Huh?
You know the famous picture of the guy with glasses?
Oh,
That's
that
exactly
is-
what he looked
that
like when
is
he was
bad.
younger. Yeah.
That is bad.
But I would be one of like 1,000 people on fucking social media. who
Let's
says
put it
that
together, bro. Let's write a book.
It says that their dad's the Zodiac killer. He did have a bad temper.
Let's
most
feed
of
it
my
into
life.
Chat GPT and come up with a
What was he
bestseller.
doing in 1960?
He was in California.
No, was he?
I think so.
Holy shit!
He used to live in California. Like they moved here before I was born.
That
All right,
explains his
He
wacky
might have been
behavior.
in Germany in the 60s.
Stay tuned
actually.
for our book about how Mike's dad is
Yeah.
possibly the Zodiac
Let's
killer.
milk it for all it's worth. Hi, hello. Quick note from the future. Dad, if you're listening, it's just a joke. Also, I wanted to add another reason why I believe Hodel's entire rigmarole is a whole load of shit. It has to do with a lot of surrealist art, which we're about to get into. But there's a precedent for this this story has been done already, essentially with the Jack the Ripper case and a painter by the name of Walter Sickert. And it's believed by some that Walter Sickert was the Ripper, while others believe that he has at least encoded clues in his paintings and that he knew the true actual identity of the Ripper, predominantly in a series of paintings called Camden Town, I believe they were, and another one called Jack the Ripper's Room. So this idea has been around quite a while. 1920s, I believe, about the same time as surrealism. So come on, Steve Hodel, you could do better. Or not, I don't know, whatever. Anywho, resuming regular broadcast. No, see, the reason that Steve Hodel's story is so fucking compelling is that he started out, basically, he found these two photographs that he thought were Elizabeth Short. They look nothing like
it's just a dark-haired woman, yeah.
Yeah.
Definitely, if you look at Elizabeth Short's cheekbones, there.
Yeah, that's the main.
She got that big forehead and cheekbones. You can't miss that skull.
One woman came out and said that that's me in the photo who is still alive.
Yes, yeah.
And the other one's still unidentified, but it's definitely not Elizabeth Short. However, Hodel comes out and says that, you know, even if it's not them, this is what got me put on the track to investigate. And he says that he initially started the investigation to disprove that it was his father after finding these photos. But that's when they also went down the whole road of deciding to basically air all the fucking various dirty laundry of their family.
Yeah, because the daughter was fucked up.
Yeah. See, George Hodel, he was a sort of a doctor. He was
legally a doctor.
Yeah, he didn't have like a license to practice
MD.
surgery or anything. He could have known surgical skills, etc.
Yeah, I think he's done some surgical skills. I mean,
but they tried to say that he was the VD czar of LA.
Yes, but that's the thing. We have no real sources to corroborate whether he was the VD czar or if he was just working a shitty little clinic that only catered to the poor black people.
Hey.
Because that's the two different stories we've heard with no fucking sources to corroborate either one that we have seen.
Did I tell you boys the Russian word for VD?
Yeah.
On the show? Brought your cock off.
Yeah.
Okay.
But go ahead and add in the
yeah. Oh yeah. So yeah, he was what he's recorded as doing, and like this is backed up with tons of documentation. He was running basically a free clinic, for lack of a better term, for the lower end poor black neighborhood of Bronzeville, which oddly enough, I found this out and it's pretty interesting. Bronzeville was like a whole-made neighborhood that used to house all the Japanese people, and then the internment camps happened.
So then the black people got it.
Yeah, they just moved in. It was like, well, no one's living there. There's all these fucking houses. So, but yeah, the story about George Hodel being a fucking scumbag,
it's probably true.
Yeah, I buy a lot of it. There are stories saying that he molested his daughter.
Got lots of children.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, tons of kids. Hey, he was a poonhound, like we said.
Yeah, by many different women.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like I said, it was easy to get laid back then.
I'm a doctor.
I swear.
Trust me, I'm a doctor.
Yeah, if you're in LA,
Would you like to play doctor?
1947, post-war, all these Midwest girls coming out to the big city, lost their hometown boyfriend to the war, and they're out there and they're trying to experiment because they want to see all the new things. And let me show you how they do it in France.
Yeah,
like that's
plus like
I swear it was easier to get laid.
Women counted more on men for their living, basically.
Oh yeah,
there's not a lot of places hiring fucking women unless you wanted to be a waitress or a secretary.
Yeah, they kicked them out of the factory as soon as the war was over.
Yeah, that was another problem. So George's daughter, Tamar, she has...
Tamar,
excuse me. Tamar. She herself has quite a bit of problems.
Boy, howdy.
Now, this is where, and I'm glad on the ride over that Spencer told me to tread carefully on this part.
What?
because I didn't really consider it until we were talking it out loud. Tamar, she basically alleged that her father had sex with her.
Mm-hmm. There was a trial.
Yes, and during this trial, it came up that I believe it was Tamar's mother who came up and said she was called on the stand and saying, no, it's not true. She's also accused 13 other boys at Beverly Hills High School of also sexually assaulting her. So we always like and subscribe to the policy of believe the victim.
Yeah.
I'm just saying that this calls everything into question is what it is.
Yeah, and then
and I don't doubt that she was fucked with by somebody.
Yeah,
and
because
probably her father.
if you listen to it, it went down the line where she was also very inappropriate with her children.
Yeah, that comes up as well.
And if you listen to her talk, the audio, her voice sounds like Sonoma. Like when you think of Sonoma Crystal Lady, that is her voice. And her daughter after her, their voices sound exactly the same. I couldn't decipher between the two.
I would say, and
even though that daughter didn't even grow up with her.
From what we know of, let's say family trauma of that nature,
passed on down.
Yeah, it's a generational
just pass
thing.
the buck.
Yeah, but including this into this whole already fucking heady stew of fucked up family dysfunction, it turns out that Dr. George Hodel was a big old fan of an art movement called surrealism. And this is where we get into the real
nerds!
Meat and potatoes of what Steve Hodel is trying to sell is that the entire murder of Elizabeth Short was commit essentially as a
living or not living art piece,
an homage, a tribute. Yes, a living art piece. Actually, that's what it's most people
once living art piece.
Live action
or
not painted. Yeah, and
that Elizabeth Short was his quote unquote canvas that he worked on.
Surrealist. Because that was so popular amongst these people's posts.
It was. I forgot about that whole surrealist party at the Rockefellers. I'm glad you sent that picture.
Yeah, that was interesting.
Rich people were into this shit.
But that wasn't even until the 60s.
No, surrealism was just gaining. It was created in the 20s. Well, actually, let me put it this way. Andre Breton was the guy who started the surrealist movement by publishing a work called the Surrealist Manifesto. And surrealism as an art form takes a shitload of its influence from Freudian psychology. So there's a whole sex, death kind of interplay in this.
I am not an art student because I think that's fucking annoying and pretentious. But I did have to look a little into it for this because just personal experience with artists, I think they're fucking assholes and pretentious. But
they can be.
I'm not saying that for everyone.
I consider myself a bit of a
I have met a lot.
I'm an asshole.
It's like, you're not that fucking deep. Stop. You know, like that's my personal experience. But anyway, I digress. It came out of the Dada movement. Dada.
Yeah.
Like the club downtown. Or that used to be RIP. But it came from that in the 20s and 30s, and then really picked up steam in the 40s and kind of rolled on through the 60s. The art does look cool. We've all seen the melting fucking clocks.
Yeah. Dahlia was probably the most popular Dadaist / surrealist artist.
I saw a piece today that was called The Great Masturbator. It was very interesting.
There's actually another really famous surrealist artist named Max Ernst, who is pretty badass. I like his paintings. I like most of what I saw.
I do like most of the images. When you try to put too much meaning behind the weird imagery is when I get a little like, shut up. You know?
Yeah, maybe he was just trying to make the weirdest thing they could.
Yeah.
You know?
But that's the thing, being a little weird, making cool imagery, like,
weirdness
I came up with some
part of this too, like weirdness for weirdness sake.
Exactly.
Yeah, the jagged gray line between the dream state and the waking state. You know?
Yeah,
it's just when people try to ascribe so much depth and meaning to, it's like, nah, man, you just put a fucking rabbit head on a naked woman, and they're riding a fucking rainbow unicorn fart through the fucking sky
with a bird cage on their head.
With a bird cage on their head. You
yeah,
know?
there was a lot of fetishization, and I will use the
Penile.
literal and figurative term objectification of the female body, which is what.
Yeah, that was a big part of it.
Yeah, the fucking
the culture, not just the art.
Oh yeah. There was a lot of use of mannequins and dolls, which were a huge thing.
There are a lot of goddamn doll heads in that surrealist shit.
Yeah.
I guess that's the disassociative nature of the.
What is life and what animates us? Let's see. The work of Hans Belmer, who was a guy who was exceptionally into dolls, leads off into a weird bit of a tangent to this. But if you look into his story and his association with a guy named Kokoschki, something like that, I'll include it in show notes. But he built a fucking, like, one of the first real dolls, basically, for this dude.
Ew.
Yeah, except that he covered the body in feathers for some reason. You know, just to be artsy, I guess.
Chicken lady?
Yeah. My dad killed himself on the farm. Yeah, so that's a whole weird aside. But like I said, they took a lot of their ideas from Freudian psychology, specifically the whole sex death trip, man. Surrealist art shows consisted of mannequins, most of them made up to look like corpses or having body parts replaced by bird cages, as mentioned earlier. Bisection, bifurcation, quote-unquote mutilation of artificial bodies, etc. Surrealists also take a huge influence from occultism. This was originally what pushed me into wanting to do this, but the more I looked into Hodel's story, I was like, eh. And I do believe surrealism
It's still a really cool story.
Yeah. I still believe that surrealism played a part in the, let's say, impetus behind Elizabeth Short's murder, just in a much less direct form.
Yeah, just the atmosphere of the swinging post-war fucking 40s in Hollywood.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Or LA in general.
The mind space of what was going on.
Yeah,
the zeitgeist, if you will.
We just got freed from the Nazis and the Japs. We just blew up a bunch of goddamn islands.
Saw a bunch of horrible shit.
A lot of horrible shit.
Violence and nightmares have elevated to a new level.
But hey, the fucking economy is booming.
War, what is it good for?
Profits.
So yeah, the occultism did play a part into this, and the surrealists would employ methods such as channeling or automatic writing. They were big into seances and shit like that. The main reason that they did this is they said they were trying to override reason and logic and sort of bridge the gap between the subconscious and conscious mind, and yes, have access to the dreamscape and sort of a real
Rule the world from beyond the grave.
yeah, basically.
Indeed.
Yeah, so the occultism does play a minor role in this, but I would say that by the 40s, from 1925, I believe, is when the Surrealist Manifesto was written, and then by 1947, at the time of Elizabeth Short's murder, surrealism was already being incorporated into advertising, and also, and I'm just throwing this out there to build the bridge for later work, but also being used and applied to pornography, specifically fetish pornography. Yeah. Back in when, you know, pornography still had pretensions of being art, basically.
Well, they had to call it that. It was
Yeah.
it either had to be art or medical to be legal.
Unless it was French.
I guess I think pretty much anything in
Oh,
America
there's a
that
jagged line.
if it came over as you'd be like, it's art, it's from France, and they're like, oh yeah, sure.
You got any more of those postcards from France? You know the ones I mean.
Yeah.
Yeah, this was a time of also Tijuana Bibles, popular men's magazines and pulp magazines having pictures of women strapped down to tables with needles getting poked in their eyes. Just
Yeah, those men's pulp magazines were pretty sick.
yeah, the art's pretty badass.
That's what I'm
too.
saying. They're pretty cool. Like, they look cool as shit. I need to get some of those.
They got
fucking
that retro
framed on
shit.
art. I need to look at some blown up for posters. That'd be pretty cool.
Also, and I don't know why I feel the need to include this. I don't remember when the book came out. I believe it was in the 1800s. Victor Hugo, the guy who wrote The Hunchback of Notre Dame, a couple other books, he is probably the original source for a story about this group of gypsies called the Comprachicos. these guys interest me to no end. They were basically people who bought children and
Gave them happy homes?
sure, that's part of it, I guess. Paraphrasing. They would intentionally disfigure these children and create freak shows, basically, and create freaks and sell them to like rich people.
That's not good.
Yeah. This idea came up sort of involved in this tangentially as well, and may have also influenced a lot of what the surrealists at the time were looking into, but that's conjecture. I also just wanted to shoehorn in the idea of the Comprachicos because it's such a fucking weird, fucked up story, crazy idea, and the existence of this group is still disputed to this day. It may just boil down to fucking gypsy racism, basically. So, yeah, surrealism, having come out in the mid-20s, was by the time of Elizabeth Short's murder in 1947, being incorporated into advertising, pornography, fetish magazines, etc., and popular art, basically. So it was around. It was influencing people. And George Hodel was a huge fan of this shit. So much so that he was a more or less total 100% fanboy of one of the more well-known surrealist artists who went by the name of Man Ray. And Man Ray has... it's a cool name.
Ray!
Man Ray was known mostly for being a photographer, and there's one photograph in particular that he took known as the Minotaur that basically it's a picture of a that is, see, that's freaking shit right there.
One.
Yeah.
Man Ray's Minotaur photograph, essentially it's a photo done of, I can't tell if is that a woman?
See, when I looked it up, there was two that would pop up. There's that one right there, the Minotaur,
Yeah,
but
that one's not,
that's not the
after
one.
the fact.
He has two different ones.
The one that I saw.
Yeah,
there's the one that's the woman.
there's the
and
woman
I
one.
think I saw one of a man.
The
also.
main one that comes up is the man chest. That first one when you look for it, but you have to go in. I found it through. You had to get on a site and then flip through them, and then it showed the this jointed looking woman thing.
Okay, yeah, and there's the Elizabeth Short kind of
Comparison.
contrast.
Yeah, that's after the fact. Yeah, that's
the Steve Hodell's trying to make hay out of saying that basically this Minotaur picture mirrors how the upper half of Elizabeth Short's body was found.
Oh, this is Steve Hodel's website.
And the fact that all these mannequins and literally objectified women, pieces and components and parts of women, played such a huge part in surrealist art that it influenced Dr. Hodel, and he basically killed Elizabeth Short as a love letter to the art form, to Man Ray, which supposedly Man Ray and Hodel were good buddies, if you hear Steve Hodel tell it, but I don't know. That's also been hotly disputed. To hear Man Ray basically tell it, he said they just had a business relationship because he would do photography for him, for his family. Yeah, but
yeah, this, if anything, if this was George Hodel, then this was like a tribute to Man Ray's work, and Man Ray may not have had anything to do with it whatsoever.
No,
yeah.
yeah.
It is said that it is claimed that they were friends, but we have again, like everything else, I'm yet to find any kind of actual proof of that. There's no picture of the guys hanging out together. They didn't. There's no person other than Steve Hodel that has said, yeah, I hung out with them and they were all together and they were tag teaming hoes and fucking doing shots together and they fucking touched
one of them was my sister.
Yeah.
Yeah, there was talk of that too.
Yeah. Well, I'm sure. Telling you, everybody was getting laid back then, bro.
It was a free-for-all, baby.
Yeah. Talk about the swinging 60s. Nah, I think the 40s is where everybody was fucking...
The fucking 40s.
The fucking 40s. I mean, why do you think all
60s.
the post-war baby boom?
Yeah.
Well, it's the fucking 40s. That's why.
60s had flower children. These were the root people.
Nice.
Yeah.
I like that. That's good.
Thank you. So yeah, that's the Hodel rundown. Basically, the whole surrealist art angle. I mean,
It sounds
just,
good.
Yeah, and that's why. And see, here's another thing. I think when I'm getting into my conspiracy brain on this, I think someone stands to profit or benefit in some way from Steve Hodel's story being the most,
Follow the money.
the most widely spread narrative. I don't know if I mentioned this already, but when you type in "who is the Black Dahlia killer," George Hodel is like the first thing.
Yeah,
that comes
it
up.
is. It's pretty much in popular culture. It is the accepted
Yes.
theory now.
Yeah, and it's a good story,
It's great.
but there's a lot of fucking bullshit and loopholes and just stuff that doesn't
Compelling
make
and
sense.
rich.
But on the other hand, all the disprovers, everything that we found that was a disprover,
Yeah.
they didn't have anything to back it either. So
Oh,
we
good
can't
point.
we
Yeah.
can't disprove him because there's still no evidence either way.
That's a good point. That's
Yeah.
a fucking good
That's
point.
that's
man.
the thing.
See, I don't think that we've ever heard the name of the person who actually committed this murder. I don't think they came up on anyone's radar. I
Yeah.
don't think it's a suspect we've had been named yet. Someone might, that could change. I don't know. But,
Well,
I
we're
think
about to
this-
reach the expiration date for deathbed confessions.
Yeah.
Well, I mean,
They're
it
They're
would have to
probably
be their
dead.
children.
Whoever
yeah.
they are, they're fucking dead.
yeah.
If they were 20 years
And if it was their
old
kid, why
in
wouldn't they come out?
1947,
Yeah. I don't know.
they're fucking dead.
Yeah.
It's 100. They'd be 100 fucking years old, damn near by now.
I think there's
Yeah.
like one World War II veteran left.
No, yeah, that's
There's not
kind
a
of
lot.
weird, right? Because there was like my crossing guard in elementary school was a World War II vet. And half his face was burned.
Mm.
Yeah.
You know, you don't see him anymore now.
Yeah. Who knows when they'll start trying to rewrite the narrative on World War II? They're not already.
They've
They'll
already
try to say we didn't win the war.
There's been a lot. There's
Yeah.
already a lot.
Yeah, they're called Holocaust.
That's the thing. We're at this point where there's so much media, but that's the thing. We can look back and see all of the media and see that a lot of it's bullshit and the shit people believed. Hell, fucking in the late '90s, hell, in the early 2000s, hell, last week. The shit that people believed last week has been disproven,
Yeah.
and the shit that people believed for 50 years before that is still being disproven.
Well, that's the thing too about a popular narrative is that people get very invested into it.
Oh,
And
yeah.
they're like, this is it. This is what happened. And even if new information comes along that can be confirmed, people will still be so highly invested in a fucking story or, what they thought happened on something that they will deny all new information.
Yeah.
It's confirmation bias. It's fucking selective blindness to a lot of things. So, yeah, I don't know. From everything that I've looked at on both sides of this, or however, this shit has more sides than spaghetti. I don't know how many fucking sides there are, definitively speaking, but I think this was all just a fucking gross fetish murder, basically. That this person literally objectified Betty Short.
Thing is, looking at it, they either did it before or they did it after.
Yeah, and that's another thing.
That's the thing.
You
That is
lead
the
up
most
to this.
compelling is that whoever did it before or they did it after or
mean-
both.
Statistically impossible. This was a one-off.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Pretty much.
That's why I thought that the lone woman murders I mentioned earlier may have some connection, but that's been either confirmed or denied.
What I was thinking about earlier is, the trope about the fucking asshole, like, telling a girl, why don't you smile? You should smile. And then,
Yeah.
the girl's like, because the girl
Why
doesn't like
so
the guy.
serious?
Yeah, oh, you don't want to smile for me? I'll fucking make you smile. That's what it made me think of. And it's like,
So much has
I'll make
changed
you-
in the last 60 years, hasn't it?
Yeah, could it be?
She made me feel small.
Could it be that just some asshole did this one off? I think not. Ancient alien theorists might think different. I don't know. But
Mhm.
Take a drink every time. I also wanted to mention that there have been cases. See, I guess this is where the pushback on this was a one-time thing comes from, or not a one-time thing, is that there have been known cases where say, and I'm not saying that this is who did it, but the mafia, for example, they will make a crime look like, quote unquote, make it look like a psycho did it.
Yeah.
So there is the sort of the blind, the decoy, the sort of misdirection.
Subterfuge.
Yes.
Yeah, but at the same time, the mafia in that time, you know what they're just going to go do with that white girl? Dump her in a black neighborhood. Problem solved.
Sounds about right. Yeah. I kept thinking of the West Memphis 3 case and how when they found the boys that were tied up and everyone was like, this is an occult ritual crime gone fucking bad, or, well, I mean, I don't know how that would have gone good, but whatever. I'm not going to say the guy's name who most likely did it because he's very litigious. He tried to sue the Dixie Chicks. So I'm not saying he listens to our podcast or anything, but allegedly.
Oh, I don't know this one. You'll have to tell me after.
Yeah, this guy that's who most people like for this crime. He's a relative of one of the boys.
Oh, yeah, I remember now. Okay,
Yeah.
It's been a while since I've done the West Memphis.
Supposedly, like, there's people who posit the idea that he did the whole tying up thing and sort of made it look, quote unquote, ritual-ish to sort of throw people off the scent, basically.
Yeah.
So there is that hypothesis as well. But see, that's just a perfect example of how everything conflicts in this shit, and it's just a fucking perfect storm of just who the fuck knows. So, I don't know. Yeah. And I think that's it. I think that's the Black Dahlia.
Well, guys, we didn't fucking solve it.
We
didn't fucking solve it.
We did the show.
I had my hopes up for a minute.
I
there.
thought we were going to
There
get
was going
them.
to be a big juicy reveal.
Thought we were going to get them, but you know what? What we have come to the conclusion is that there is no conclusion to this, and there probably never will be.
Yeah. And the way that information is becoming so abundant now, and
Then
so many
again-
sides of the argument that people can say, you're a liar, no, you're a liar, you're a disinfo
Now,
agent.
we can start a movement. You remember how they had that movement to raid Area 51?
Mhm.
Let's go raid that fucking LA warehouse where the police have the fucking actual info that we cannot see from the
It
autopsy.
belongs in a museum.
It belongs in a museum. Actually, it belongs on the internet. Let everybody see it. Fucking
Show me your birth certificate. I mean, the evidence.
I mean, it's been so goddamn long. Why not release it? Why not?
Somebody knows.
Who knows what evil lurks in the hearts of men? The shadow knows.
To quote the title of a popular 1950s radio drama, somebody knows.
I
have a
remember that
feeling
one. That was good.
Whatever it is, it must be tied in with police corruption.
Yeah, somebody
Somebody high up
You
somewhere.
know, somebody who somehow by
or
releasing
the
this
newspaper.
info,
That's what I also think as
that'll,
well.
yeah. It'll also show, that it was covered up.
Yeah.
You know,
Somebody's covering someone's ass, and or like the question to always ask, obviously, is cui bono. And I will say, fucking, if anyone bonoed out of this, is the fucking newspaper. That's for goddamn sure. That's why I was bringing up the LA Inquirer or LA Examiner so much earlier. And the guy who was involved, I believe he was like one of the publishers of that paper, was named as a suspect.
But who also
So-
qui bonoed? The guy that killed her, because he got completely the fuck off.
Oh, yeah. So, yeah, that's going to be it for today's episode. This has been Kooks Pranks
I'm
and
sorry to be
Iconoclast.
fucking disqualifying the person that did it.
thank you.
It could be a lesbian surgeon. You don't know.
It could have been a lesbian surgeon.
Even though that's probably accounts for 0.02% of the population at the time.
It was obviously a wild animal attack.
So yeah, tune in next week. I believe we're going to be doing something alien adjacent.
Oh, are we?
I have to double check with the fellas here.
I forgot to check the list.
Yeah, I'm your host, Mike Lux, and as always, joined by my co-hosts and friends.
Spencer Lowry,
And
take
Chris-
care of yourself.
Christopher
Stay classy.
motherfucking Wells. Yeah, I guess something. I don't know. Don't drink too much, and enjoy your life.
Don't accept anything from strangers.
Drink a beer, do a push-up, have fun.
Don't get it on you. Peace.
Treat yourself.
What?